The choice in this election is whether America remains America.
There are those that say, you can test too much. You do know that.
Who says that?
Oh, just read the manuals, read the books.
Manuals?
Read the
What
books.
manuals?
Read the books.
What books?
What testing does is
sorry,
it shows, wait a minute,
who
John, let me explain. What testing does, it shows cases. It shows where there may be cases.
I've covered you for a long time. I've gone to your rallies. I've talked to your people. They love you. They listen to you. They listen to every word you say. They hang on your every word. They don't listen to me or the media or Fauci. They think we're fake news. They want to get their advice from you. And so when they hear you say everything's under control, don't worry about wearing masks, I mean, these are people, many of them are older people,
What's
Mr.
your
President.
definition of control? Yeah, under the
It's giving them a false sense of
right
security.
now, I think it's under control. I'll tell you what.
How? 1,000 Americans are dying a day.
They are dying. That's true. And it is what it is. But that doesn't mean we aren't doing everything we can. When I took over, we didn't even have a test. Now, in all fairness,
why would you have a test?
There was no test.
The virus
for
didn't
this.
exist. How would you have a
Excuse me, I was
test?
going to say.
Okay. Death is going up now.
Okay, no,
and it's 1,000 a day.
If you look at death.
Yeah, it's
okay,
going
let's
up
look.
again.
Let's look.
Daily death.
Take a look at some of these charts.
I'd love to.
We're going to look.
Let's look.
And if you look at death,
Yeah. It started to go up
here's
again.
one. Well, right here, the United States is lowest in numerous categories. We're lower than the world.
Lower than
We're
the
lower
world?
than
What does that mean?
Europe.
In
Take a
what?
look.
In what?
Take a look. Right here. Here's case death.
Oh, you're doing death as a proportion of cases. I'm talking about death as a proportion of population. That's where the US is really bad.
Well,
Much worse than South Korea, Germany, etc.
you can't do that. You have
Why
to go.
can't I do that?
You have to go by where. Look, here is the United States. You have to go by the cases. The cases.
Why
are
not
dead.
as a proportion of
when we have
population?
somebody, what it says is when you have somebody that has where there's a case.
Oh, okay.
The people that live from those cases.
It's surely a relevant statistic to say if the US has X population and X percentage of death of that population versus
because you
South
have to
Korea.
go by the cases.
Well, look at South Korea, for example. 51 million population, 300 deaths. It's like, it's crazy
you
compared
don't
to...
know that.
I do. It's on
You
the...
don't know
it's-
that.
You think they're faking their statistics, South Korea?
I
An
won't get
advanced
into
country?
that because I have a very good relationship with the country, but you don't know that.
1,000 Americans are dying a day, but I understand on cases it's different.
No, but you're not reporting it correctly, Jonathan.
I think I am, but it's been widely reported that the US has intelligence indicating that Russia paid bounties or offered to pay bounties to Taliban fighters to kill American soldiers.
Mm-hmm.
You had a phone call with Vladimir Putin on July 23rd. Did you bring up this issue?
No, that was a phone call to discuss other things.
And you've never discussed it with him?
I have never discussed it with him, no. I would. I'd have no problem with it.
But you don't believe the intelligence?
never
It's because
got
you don't
to-
believe the intelligence, that's why.
It never reached my desk. You know why? Because they didn't think it was intelligence. They didn't think it was real.
It was in
They
your
didn't
written
think-
brief, though,
They
apparently.
didn't think it was worthy of. I wouldn't mind. If it reached my desk, I would have done something about it. It never reached my desk because
Do you read your written brief?
I do. I
Do you?
read a lot.
Really?
You know, I read a lot. They like to say I don't read. I read a lot.
Your daily
I
intelligence
comprehend
brief?
extraordinarily well, probably better than anybody that you've interviewed in a long time. I did more for the black community than anybody with the possible exception of Abraham Lincoln, whether you like it or not. People say, oh, that's
You really,
interesting.
you believe you did more than Lyndon Johnson, who passed the Civil
I
Rights
think I
Act?
did, yeah.
How?
Because I
How
got criminal
possibly did you
justice
do?
reform done. I got prison reform.
Lyndon Johnson.
I've done things. Well,
He passed the Civil Rights
ask,
Act.
How has it worked out? If you take a look at what Lyndon Johnson did.
You think the Civil Rights Act was a
How has it
mistake?
worked out? Because frankly, it took a long time. But for African Americans,
But you
under
think that was a
my
mistake?
administration, Jonathan, under my administration, African Americans were doing better than they had ever done in the history of this country.
How do you think history will remember John Lewis?
I don't know. I really don't know. I don't know. I don't know John Lewis. He chose not to come to my inauguration. He chose. I never met John Lewis. Actually, I don't believe.
Do you find him impressive?
I don't have any horse in the game one way or the other. I just look at the data.
Dr. Fauci, one of the things you made a comment a while ago with regards to hydroxychloroquine, and I have an article here that quotes the Henry Ford Health System, an extensive study on hydroxychloroquine, and they say that it significantly reduces the death rate of COVID patients. The study was highly analyzed by peer-reviewed, unlike many other studies, and quoting the executive officer said, as doctors and scientists, we look at the data for insight, and the data here is clear. There was a benefit to using the drug as a treatment for sick and hospitalized patients. And in talking with a lot of older doctors who have been around a while, and I trust their judgment and their use of hydroxychloroquine, they say that the initial studies didn't really use zinc with it, and they say that zinc is an enabler to be able to help hydroxychloroquine actually do its job of going after and reducing deaths in patients. Had a long conversation with a doctor earlier in the week, and he said, yes, as long as zinc is there, it really definitely does work. Without it, it's minimally effective. Would you like to comment on that?
Thank you for the opportunity to comment. The Henry Ford Hospital study that was published was a non-controlled retrospective cohort study that was confounded by a number of issues, including the fact that many of the people who were receiving hydroxychloroquine were also receiving corticosteroids, which we know from another study gives a clear benefit in reducing deaths with advanced disease. So that study is a flawed study, and I think anyone who examines it carefully is that it is not a randomized placebo-controlled trial.
It said it was peer-reviewed.
It doesn't matter. You can peer review something that's a bad study, but the fact is it is not a randomized placebo-controlled trial. The point that I think is important, because we all want to keep an open mind, any and all of the randomized placebo-controlled trials, which is the gold standard of determining if something is effective, none of them had shown any efficacy for hydroxychloroquine. Having said that, I will state, when I do see a randomized placebo-controlled trial that looks at any aspect of hydroxychloroquine, either early study, middle study, or late, if that randomized placebo-controlled trial shows efficacy, I would be the first one to admit it and to promote it. But I have not seen yet a randomized placebo-controlled trial that's done that, and in fact, every randomized placebo-controlled trial that has looked at it has shown no efficacy. So I just have to go with the data. I don't have any horse in the game one way or the other. I just look at the data.
Thank you very much.
The gentleman's time has expired.
My grandmother died of COVID, and my godmother died of COVID. I want to talk to you about compassionate integrity versus politics and greed. As many of you know, I posted about my sister being in the hospital in a COVID room and that she has lupus and she's fighting for her life. I didn't let you know that her husband, Bruce, is also in a COVID room in the same ward fighting for his life, and that they stayed at home as long as they could. I want to tell you a little bit about why. In Montana, where they live, you can't get tested unless you're symptomatic, and then you don't get your test results for 5 days. Also, the people that they came in contact with, like my mother, who's had 2 heart attacks, 5 stints and a pacemaker in the last 5 months, couldn't get a test because she wasn't symptomatic, even though she could have been the asymptomatic contact that gave them COVID. The nurses in the hospital that are taking care of them can't get tested because they don't have tests to test them with. Those nurses are risking their lives and cannot get tested. The stress, the strain, the exhaustion that's happening in that hospital is met with the conflict around the courthouse, where people are carrying guns and saying that it's their freedom not to have to wear a mask. This is the situation in Montana, where the governor, Steve Bullock, is not returning my calls, where the health department, where I continuously call, is hanging up on me. This is the state of affairs in the middle of our country, where you the people in the middle of our country are at great risk of dying from COVID. They keep saying that the risks are so small and that you might not die and that it'll be fine. But I'm telling you what's going on with my family. My grandmother died of COVID, and my godmother died of COVID. My sister and her husband are fighting for their lives, and my sister is not doing well. They couldn't give her the remdesivir until she went to the hospital because that's the law there. And there was no one to help them while they were at home alone, because there are no kind of nurses that can come to the house there because there's no test for them. When they say there are tests for everyone, they're lying. When they say there are tests even for the nurses in the hospitals, they're lying. People are dying and fighting for their lives because there's nothing but lies. And because the people at the governor's houses, the people at the health departments are simply so overwhelmed that they're not answering the phones, they're hanging up, and they're not returning calls. This is the state that we're in. The only thing that's going to change this is if you vote. And if you vote for Biden and if you vote for Kamala Harris. And the reason that's going to happen is because with women in power, we will fight for our families. We will fight for people to live, and we will fight for people to get tested. Because the only countries that are doing well with COVID are the ones that have women in leadership. Please vote, and please, whatever you do, don't vote for a killer. Thank you.
I voted for Trump in 2016. Today, I couldn't be more ashamed of myself.
I am a registered Republican.
And I'm a lifelong Republican. Matter of fact, I have never voted for a Democrat in my entire life.
I've been active all my life as a Republican.
I voted for Trump in 2016. Today, I couldn't be more ashamed of myself.
I voted for Donald Trump. Not my proudest moment. I will not be voting for him again.
And I voted for Donald Trump in 2016 with the hopes that he would truly make America great again.
Voted Republican in 2016, but not for Trump. I would not vote for Trump. There's several reasons why. Racist, bigot.
In 2016, I did not vote for Donald Trump.
Sexist, male chauvinist.
I felt there were other Republicans who were far more qualified.
Bully, agitator.
I did not feel that he was morally or mentally fit to be President of the United States.
Liar, corrupt.
However, when he was elected, I hoped that the Republicans in the Congress would be able to help him be a good president.
Swindler, grifter.
Unfortunately, that did not happen.
He is showing us, and I believe God put him up there for a reason, to show us what our government is lacking and what we are losing. This man has broke us down to the very marrow and exposed our weaknesses.
I grew up in the church. Character and morals and values are big to me and my family. The hardest thing to watch in the last 4 or 5 years with all of this has been the evangelical Christians sell out to this false prophet.
We're farmers and, like I said, conservative Republicans and Christians. And here we're being asked to follow a man that lies and has no morals and has just nothing good I can say about him.
I believe if Donald Trump is elected for 4 more years, that our country will go down the darkest path in its history. At least since the Civil War. I believe that.
His mishandling of the coronavirus and the way that he has handled the situation with George Floyd's tragic death is beyond outrageous.
It's not just the nepotism and the corruption. It's not just the casual racism and the cruelty towards those seeking a better life in our country. It's not just a clear desire to run the country as an autocrat in the mode of Vladimir Putin. It's not just the attempt to divide our country rather than bringing us together. It's not just the undermining of our credibility with our Democratic allies around the world. It's not just proceeding over the worst economy in close to a century. And it's not just the deliberate and reckless disregarding of advice from public health professionals, which has been a primary contributor to the deaths of over 100,000 of our fellow Americans. It's all of that and more.
We need to bring the United States back to the United States of America. And we need to get our morals back, and we need to take care of each other. And I'm thinking I'm ready to be a Democrat.
I am now a Democrat because I was so outraged that I wanted to vote in this primary, and I had to change my affiliation. And I have done that. And I will support another party now because of Donald Trump.
Not only would I crawl through broken glass to vote for Joe Biden this fall, President Trump has turned me into someone who will not vote for any Republican until this entire generation of spineless sycophants is voted out of office and banished from public life.
If Joe Biden drops out and the DNC runs a tomato can, I will vote for the tomato can, because I believe the tomato can will do less harm than our current president.
I'm going to vote for Biden, and my parents are voting for Biden, and my brother and my sister-in-law are voting for Biden, and I'm sure hoping that Ohio can represent and we can show that we're country above party and that we know what's more important.
This Republican will vote for Joe Biden.
Joe Biden, November 2020.
If anybody sees this, hope everybody's good. Black Lives Matter.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
God bless you.
I'm Miles Taylor. I served as the Chief of Staff of the Department of Homeland Security under the Donald Trump administration. I would go into the office, I would read my intelligence brief, and then it was my job to help the Department of Homeland Security to keep our country safe. What we saw week in and week out, and for me after 2.5 years in that administration, was terrifying. We would go in to try to talk to him about a pressing national security issue, cyber attack, terrorism threat. He wasn't interested in those things. To him, they weren't priorities. The president wanted to exploit the Department of Homeland Security for his own political purposes and to fuel his own agenda. The California wildfires. On a phone call with the Federal Emergency Management Agency, he told FEMA to cut off the money and to no longer give individual assistance to California. He told us to stop giving money to people whose houses had burned down from a wildfire because he was so rageful that people in the state of California didn't support him and that politically it wasn't a base for him. The policies at the border, he wanted to restart zero tolerance and separate families. He said he wanted to go further and have a deliberate policy of ripping children away from their parents to show those parents that they shouldn't come to the border in the first place. A lot of the time, the things he wanted to do not only were impossible, but in many cases illegal. He didn't want us to tell him it was illegal anymore because he knew that there were, and these were his words, he knew that he had magical authorities. He was one of the most unfocused and undisciplined senior executives I've ever encountered. I came away completely convinced based on firsthand experience that the president was ill-equipped and wouldn't become equipped to do his job effectively. And what's worse, was actively doing damage to our security. People who are still serving in this administration have said to me, just wait until the second term. It'll be no holds barred. It'll be shock and awe. We'll do what we want. Given what I've experienced in the administration, I have to support Joe Biden for president. And even though I'm not a Democrat, even though I disagree on key issues, I'm confident that Joe Biden will protect the country. And I'm confident he won't make the same mistakes as this president.
The reviews are in.
You have to go by where, look.
Here's what Trump's own people are saying about him. He's a moron. Rex Tillerson, Trump's Secretary of State.
We're lower than the world.
Lower than the world. He tries to divide us. James Mattis, Trump's Secretary of Defense.
You had a group on one side and you had a group on the other. Very fine people on both sides.
He's an idiot. John Kelly, Trump's Chief of Staff.
They weren't laughing at me.
A professional liar. Gary Cohn, Trump's economic advisor.
There will be no lies.
He thinks he's God. Barbara Rass, SVP of Trump Organization.
I am the chosen one.
Like an 11-year-old child, Steve Bannon, Trump's advisor.
I don't take responsibility.
I think we need to look harder at who we elect.
I don't think he's fit for office.
I have the most loyal people.
Can America survive 4 more years?
We are better than this moment we're in.
After 240 years of patriotic service delivering the mail, how can one person screw this up in just a few weeks? So Mr. DeJoy is the Postmaster for the United States of America for the last 70 days. Did you know that the Postal Service has never allowed itself to be in the situation that it's in today? Throughout the Postal Service history, there's been a tradition of reliable delivery from the very beginning. Article 1, Section 8, Clause 7 of the United States Constitution. During the First World War and the Spanish flu influenza of 1918, through the Great Depression, millions of people out of work, 1,000 bank failures, the mail was delivered on time. Even during the Second World War, with the threat of Nazi U-boats, international mail was delivered on time. Just so happens I was elected on 9/11, the day of the terrorist attacks on our nation, a god-awful day. Some people forget, in the days after 9/11, we had direct anthrax attacks on the United States Postal Service. We lost 2 brave postal workers, Joseph Cursine and Tom Morris, down at the Brentwood facility here in D.C. from anthrax inhalation. But for the good of the country, the postal unions continued to send their members into the post office to do their job to keep the country running. So two weeks ago, after you'd been postmaster for just a few weeks, that all changed. In the middle of a pandemic that has killed 170,000 Americans, and on the eve of a national election, at a time when the CDC is advising people not to gather, limit outside contact, the Postal Service started removing 671 high-speed mail sorting machines across the country. You stopped the APWU from sorting the mail, and you stopped the national letter carriers and mail handlers from working overtime to deliver the mail. And for the first time in 240 years in our history of the United States Postal Service, you sent out a letter, embarrassingly, in July to 46 states that said the post office can't guarantee that we can deliver the mail in time for the elections in November. And we have reports from across the country, as you acknowledge, service has been delayed and the mail is piling up. You have ended a once proud tradition. Now, as a member of the Oversight Committee, we are the chief investigative committee in the Congress. We conduct oversight on every matter that impacts the American people, foreign and domestic. There are members on this committee who have been to Iraq and Afghanistan a couple dozen times. They've been to Yemen, Somalia, Gaza, you name it. They literally go to the ends of the earth to investigate matters that affect the American people, especially when it involves our sons and daughters in uniform. In this moment, it is our postal workers who happen to be our men and women in uniforms. They are on the front lines of this pandemic. Throughout this pandemic, they've risked their own health and safety to deliver, or tried to deliver, mail, medicines, and mail-in ballots to every American home and business 6 days a week. As a member of this August committee, I'm supposed to ask you a question. In my heart, I'm tempted to ask, after 240 years of patriotic service delivering the mail, how can one person screw this up in just a few weeks? Now, I understand you bring private sector expertise. I guess we couldn't find a government worker who could screw it up this fast. It would take them a while. The president is running this post office like a business, like he said. He's running it into the ground, as he has declared bankruptcy a few times on his own businesses. In an effort to apply the facts, the real facts, not the alternative facts, based on what you have actually done, one can only reach, as a fact finder, we can only reach 2 conclusions. One, either through gross incompetence, you have ended the 240-year history of delivering the mail reliably on time, or the second conclusion that we could gather is that you're doing this on purpose and that you're deliberately dismantling this once proud tradition.
The gentleman's time has expired. The gentleman may answer his question.
My last question is this.
Thank you,
What
sir.
the heck are you doing? What the heck are you doing?
The gentleman's time has
That's my
expired.
question.
Thank you, sir.
The gentleman's time has expired. The gentleman
First of
may
all,
answer.
I would like to agree with you on the heroic efforts of our 650,000 employees across the nation, and the history of the Postal Service for their the 250-year history of serving the American public. And I'm very
Will you put
proud-
the machines back?
I'm very proud to lead the organization. The rest of your accusations are actually
Will you put the
outrageous.
high-speed machines
No,
back?
I will not.
You will not.
Will not.
You will not. Well, there you go.
There I go. What?
There
Those
will-
machines,
Madam
those
Chair,
machines have been
let the
coming
witness
out.
answer the question, and he has gone over time.
Order. The gentleman may answer the question without being interrupted. And
Every
the question is,
accusation-
will you put the machines back?
The answer is no, and every accusation you made, other than the truck, adhere to the truck schedule, is inaccurate and more misinformation for the American public.
You won't put the machines back, though. You took them out. They're high-speed
Madam
machines.
Chair,
Did not take-
Madam Chair.
Mr. Jordan is now recognized. Congressman Jordan, is he here?
Joe Biden goes to church so regularly that he doesn't even need tear gas and a bunch of federalized troops to help him get there. When Donald Trump spoke at his inauguration about American carnage, I assumed that was something he was against, not a campaign promise. Right now, you can text VOTE to 30330 to learn about all of your voting options and make the best plan for how to vote in your community, wherever you are. An easy way to remember 30330 is that's the year Donald Trump will finally release his tax returns. 30330. It's actually not that hard to remember. Watch. Person, woman, man, camera, TV, 30330. Anyone can do it. 30330. That would be the president's golf score if he didn't cheat. Okay, look, I'll admit that was a little nasty, but we all know he's a cheater. And I'm proud to be a nasty woman. These last few nights have been going so well, we've decided to add a fifth night where we will just play Michelle Obama's speech on a loop. Tonight, I couldn't be prouder to be a loyal union member, a passionate climate activist, and a patriotic Democrat. Or as Donald Trump will call me in a tweet tomorrow, a washed-up, horse-faced, no-talent has-been with low ratings. Well, with all due respect, sir, it takes one to know one. If we all vote, there is nothing Facebook, Fox News, and Vladimir Putin can do to stop us. Joe Biden shares John Lewis's belief that every vote matters. Personally, I plan to follow the example of 6 current cabinet members, Vice President Pence, and President Trump himself, and vote by mail. I first met Joe Biden when I was doing my show Veep. I played the vice president, and he was, in fact, the vice president, and we hit it off immediately. Soon after, I was asked to be on the cover of a magazine. Remember those? And I was so excited. It was like, oh, what's it gonna be? People or Vogue or Rolling Stone? Well, it turns out it was for Arrive, the official onboard magazine of Amtrak, which nobody ever reads, even though it's free. And the day it came out, my phone rang, and it was the vice president telling me he loved the cover and the whole article, and that it was one of the best issues of Arrive he had ever read. And that is just one of the many reasons that I wanted to be here tonight for Joe. And to remind you that Joe Biden not only knows how to read, but also he reads everything. A couple of years ago, I was diagnosed with cancer, and I was absolutely terrified. One of the first people who called me was Joe. His real warmth and kindness on that call, man, I gotta say, it made me cry. Our current president has made me cry too, but it's never had anything to do with his warmth or kindness. Joe Biden's empathy is genuine. You can feel it. That's why President Obama asked Joe to head up the cancer moonshot. President Obama knows what we all know. Joe Biden understands suffering and loss and sacrifice. This year, we're going to elect a president who's honest, experienced, and intelligent. A president who actually believes in the rule of law, who will restore dignity and normalcy to the White House and the soul of this nation. And boy, won't that be something?
No one will be safe in Biden's America.
It's a horror film, really.
You won't be safe in Joe Biden's America.
Your family will not be safe.
They want to steal your liberty, your freedom.
Nightmares are becoming real.
Joe Biden is not a savior of America's soul. He will be the destroyer of American greatness.
He's a Trojan horse with Bernie, AOC, Pelosi, Black Lives Matter, and his party's entire left wing.
Joe Biden is basically the Loch Ness Monster of the swamp.
They will force the choice between being obedient to God or to Caesar, because the radical left's God is government power.
They will demolish the suburbs, confiscate your guns, and appoint justices who will wipe away your Second Amendment and other constitutional freedoms.
They'll disarm you, empty the prisons, lock you in your home.
They want to control what you see and think.
And invite MS-13 to live next door. And the police aren't coming when you call, for there is no place to run.
They want to enslave you to the weak, dependent, liberal, victim ideology to the point that you will not recognize this country or yourself.
This misinformation system keeps people mentally enslaved to the ideas they deem correct.
The vengeful mob that seeks to destroy our way of life.
The forces of anarchy and communism.
Violent anarchists and agitators and criminals.
Poisoning our schools and burning our cities.
They would keep you locked in your house until you become dependent on the government for everything.
Joe Biden and the radical left are now coming for our freedom of speech.
Stripped of our religious freedoms.
The fabric of our nation is in peril.
Cops killed, children shot.
Abandoned buildings, liquor stores in every corner.
Anarchists, agitators, rioters, looters, and flag burners.
Mindlessly tear up American cities.
Working men and women of America will get crushed.
Our founding principles are under attack.
A radical socialist agenda.
We cannot fall into the left's trap.
For an obviously defective candidate, these continuous riots, you will bring this lawlessness to your city, to your town, to your suburb.
We've seen violence and chaos in the streets of our major cities.
Weak and dangerous past. Joe Biden let ISIS terrorists rampage across the Middle East.
He also supports deadly sanctuary cities that protect criminal aliens, late-term abortion of defenseless babies right up until the moment of birth.
The choice in this election is whether America remains America.
When I'm reelected, the best is yet to come.
Mr. DeJoy, the culture and ethos of the U.S. Postal Service is every piece, every day. I've been in briefings with Florida's local Postal Service employees who are telling me that since your arrival, this is no longer the mission of the USPS. Overtime to finish delivering mail is not allowed, and piles upon piles of backlogged mail are being left undelivered. Sorting machines are being sold for scrap or unplugged and roped off. My first question is it still the policy and goal of the USPS to deliver every piece every day, or have you eliminated or changed that in any way?
First of all, that is misrepresentation of any action that I have taken. But yes, the goal is to deliver every piece every day. And ma'am, we were not doing that before I got here. And my goal is to...
Well, it's gotten, reclaiming my time, it has clearly gotten worse since your arrival. We have piles upon piles of mail that, as a result of the changes that you've made, appear to have delayed the mail even further than supposedly they were delayed previously.
Change.
No.
The change I've made.
Well, the changes that you've made.
Change. I made one change.
Well, I'm sorry, you've made far more than one change.
That's not true.
Okay, reclaiming my time. You're not being honest with this committee.
That's not true. I am being honest.
Okay. I would ask that the chair add time back and direct a witness not to interrupt me.
Madam Chair,
Mr. DeJoy?
let's allow the witness to
Reclaim-
answer the questions and the
reclaiming
false
my-
accusations.
Reclaiming my time. I did not interrupt any other member while they were talking, and I expect not to be interrupted. The time is mine. Mr. DeJoy, you are not being honest with the committee about removing the sorting machines. We have been asking you for details for weeks, and you have been hiding them from us while removing them at a breakneck pace. On August 4th, your staff gave this committee a briefing on this issue, and all they told us was that you'd be moving machines around to where they were needed most. We have the slides from that briefing. There was no mention of taking any sorting machines offline. On August 11th, your general counsel responded to our requests for more information with no mention of taking any sorting machines offline. Your culture of misinformation has even trickled down to Florida Postal leadership. On August 14th, my office asked whether sorting machines were being removed at the Royal Palm facility, which covers all of South Florida, and were assured the capacity was actually being expanded. But it was only after I spoke with local postal workers that I was told about the FSS machine in Royal Palm, which had been shut down and roped off since July. Press outlets finally revealed the internal plan to remove more than 600 plus sorting machines. You were not transparent. We had to get it from news reports. I want to take this opportunity to enter into the record, Madam Chair, an August 18, 2020 email from USPS Director of Maintenance Operations, Kevin Couch. Madam Chair. The email reads, please message out to your respective maintenance managers tonight. They are not to reconnect, reinstall machines that have been previously been disconnected without approval from headquarters maintenance, no matter what direction they are getting from their plant manager. Mr. DeJoy, yes or no? And you've indicated in this committee hearing that it's not your job to decide about whether sorting machines are on or offline, but at the same time you told Mr. Khanna that you won't bring them online because they're not needed. So yes or no, have any plant managers requested mail sorting machines be reconnected?
First of all,
yes or no?
I disagree with the premise.
I'm not asking you anything other than reclaiming my time, Madam Chair.
Yeah,
yes or no?
Yes or no answer.
Yes or no? Have any plant managers across the country in the USPS requested mail sorting machines be reconnected?
How would I know that?
You're in charge. You don't know whether there are plant managers that have requested. Well, let me just assure you that there are plant managers. That was reported in the press in both Washington. There are plant managers in Texas and Washington, and I have articles that I can show you that have asked to have sorting machines reconnected and brought back online, and they've been too scared to come forward to say so. So you've indicated that it's local leadership. In this hearing, I heard you say it's not your job to decide whether sorting machines are brought online or not. Someone needs to mute, Madam Chair. Madam Chair,
please mute people that are listening. Please mute.
I need probably about additional 30 seconds from the interruptions added back onto my time, please. You have said in this hearing it's both not your job to make decisions about sorting machines, and at the same time, you've said that you're not going to bring them back online because they're not needed. It can't be both. So my local handlers who work with sorting machines regularly and this specific barcode sorter machine have assured me that it would not be difficult to plug it back in. How difficult would it be to reconnect machines that haven't already been destroyed? For example, on display, if we can bring that up on the screen, I was sent a photo from a processing and distribution center in Florida where the power cord is hanging from the ceiling and not plugged in. And my local handlers tell me that with sorting machines regularly, and that specific machine specifically, that it would not be difficult to plug back in. Do you believe that it is the local handler's job to decide whether they need a sorting machine? And will you give them the freedom to plug the machines back in and bring machines that haven't been taken apart back online in order to make sure we can get the mail out on time, which you acknowledge has gotten worse since your arrival?
The gentlewoman's time has expired, but the gentleman has requested to answer a question.
That was a long list of accusations.
No, I just want a simple answer to the question about whether you will give...
Well, it's my time now? Is it my time?
No, it's always my time. And I'd like an answer to the question.
Her time has expired.
I'm sorry. I'd like an answer to the question whether or not you will
We have a
leave it...
management team that is responsible for making decisions as to what what machines are used and not used.
But
okay?
those things are decided locally.
The
Will you
gentlewoman's
let them
time has
decide that
expired. The
locally?
gentlewoman's time has expired.
Yes or no? Will you let them decide that locally?
expired.
No.
Okay.
Congressman
Well, then
Higgins, you are now
then you have not told
recognized.
us the truth in this hearing, and it is your
Time has
fault
expired,
that the mail
Madam
has
Chairman.
been
Her
late.
time has
Your
expired.
fault.
Her time
On
has
you, and
expired.
you've acknowledged that.
Her time has
Yield back the
expired.
balance of
We
my
Her
request
time has
a response
expired.
in writing.
Postmaster General, shortly after you took the office, I reached out to schedule an introductory call with no agenda, in particular just to share my experiences as a career postal employee to kind of welcome you to the seat. But my request was turned down. I was told you needed your time to get acquainted with the agency and that you did not have time to have that meeting. But I've seen since you've been in office, the time to get antiquated to make these really, really impactful decisions on delivery and processing of the mail, you were comfortable with doing so. I want to ask you, Mr. DeJoy, are you familiar with Chapter 1 of 39 U.S. States Code?
No, I'm not.
Okay. The United States, the code reads, the United States Postal Service shall be operated as a basic and fundamental service provided by the people, to the people by the government of the United States, authorized by the Constitution, created by act of Congress, and supported by the people. Mr. DeJoy, did you take an oath of office when you became the Postmaster General?
I did, ma'am.
I remember when I took my oath of office, when I was sworn in to be a employee of the Postal Service. And to just tell you my journey, because I'm sure you're familiar with some of the names. I started as a distribution clerk, working Tour 1. Then I moved to being a letter carrier, then to being a acting supervisor, then a supervisor of delivery and collection. I served in HR, I served in safety and health, I served as an EO investigator. I had the entire state of Michigan in a district role of the women's program and for career counseling and development. And I ended my career after several task forces that were put on to monitor and to track the mail before we made decisions like taking out equipment, density counts. I, as a supervisor of delivery, I know what it took to remove a post office box. It's called a collection box. It's not a blue box, it's a collection box. So I wanted to talk to you about, have you ever served as a letter carrier?
First off, man, I'd like to congratulate you on your career path. And no, I have never served as a letter carrier.
So I did serve. So the Postal Service is introducing a new initiative called Expedited to Street Afternoon Sortation, and it reduces the morning office time to allow carriers to leave for the street earlier, and then upon returning from the streets, the carriers are then to sort any undelivered mail for the next day. Are you aware what that initiative that you have rolled out, the impact it has on delivery, carrying?
The intent, that was a program that was on the shelf. The intent of that program is to adjust for, there's been a significant decline in mail, as you know, and to adjusted. That was worked out with union leadership to run a pilot. The pilot, I stopped the pilot when I stopped everything else. So the intent of it is to get the carriers out earlier so they can come back earlier. And that's basically in the day.
Well, Mr. DeJoy, I really stress that you do some deliberate work, do some deliberate work to understand the impact that it has, because if a carrier does not come back, because this is the challenge that we have all the time. A carrier, if he has only one piece of advertisement, must stop at every home. So regardless of the volume, if you're making the same amount of stops, you're not going to shorten the time. And so when you do that, the carrier is going to be out basically the same amount of time. And so when they come back, you're delaying the mail. I have complaints in my office from people getting delivery 1 day a week now, sir. That is not according to your oath. That is not according to what the Chapter 1 of 39 says your role is. I want to, in my short period of time, Madam Chair, I was interrupted. I would just like to end this with some of my colleagues have said this is a theater. Why are you here? Well, you're here because the citizens of the United States rely on the Postal Service to deliver. Our seniors, our veterans. One thing is clear. You have been a major supporter of the president. It's documented. I don't resent you for that. You have that right. But when you are getting messages daily in tweets that the Postal Service says we don't make a deal, they don't get the money. The money means that you won't have universal mail-in. I want you to know that you have an oath of office.
Okay, the gentlewoman's time
And I
has expired.
expect for you and the American people expect for you to uphold it. Thank you, Madam
Thank you.
Chair.
And ma'am, I will live up to that oath. And if I can expand on your question with regard to the expedited process, that would not result in 1 day a week mail across in any area. We do have some employee availability issues in some of the hot spots across the nation where we have, as you would know, we could have 700 routes and only 500 carriers, and it's forcing.
Well, crying out loud, why would you implement that?
I didn't implement anything to affect that. I did not implement anything to affect that. That would not, the expedite.
But you're adding fuel to the fire, and that's the point.
I'm trying to, I'm committed to 6-day delivery. I am committed to growing the Postal Service. I have ideas for new business opportunities for the Postal Service, and I'm trying to, in the code, it also says we must be self-sustaining, and we're not, and that's what I'm trying to do. Thank you, though, and congrats again.